Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to have you here. This is Teaching Colleagues Tips, Tricks, and Strategies. I'm Maureen Malonis, and I'm one of a team of people on the SWAC project. So I'm so thankful that several of my colleagues are on the call as well to kind of help support the logistics of managing all this. We have a good turnout, so I'm excited that a number of people are interested in this topic. I'm looking forward to sharing with you some different resources. As you can see, just from this initial slide, the bottom right-hand corner has a picture of it's actually already outdated, but our most recent photo that we took last fall. And that is the staff from our Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering. As you probably know, but just in case you don't, we're in the Department of Bioengineering at the University of Colorado. And all of our work focuses on assistive technology for people with disabilities, really of all ages, all disabilities. So we have a lot of programs that we manage, and including a full clinic, academic courses in the engineering program. We just added a certificate in assistive technology, if any of you are interested in that. We also do research, and we have a number of community programs, much like SWAC. And so I encourage you to visit our website. If you're not familiar with all the things that we do, it's continually changing, I feel like, but there's lots of resources there too. So don't limit yourself just to the swac.org. There's a lot on our CIDE website as well that I think would be really valuable for a lot of you. So just to get started and just kind of help me get to know you and why you're here, I want to start with just getting a sense of where you are in your own training or coaching or teaching. We're talking about really, it could be one-on-one, it could be small group of you and your peers, or maybe you're doing workshops or conferences or, coaching a colleague, all those kinds of things I'm thinking of. I'm wondering about your frustration with that experience. So just using your annotate feature, which is under the menu if you're on a computer, it's under the menu items. You can choose a stamp or a drawing or a check mark, however you want to do it, and then just put kind of where you're at. Are you not at all frustrated? You're super comfortable teaching in any environment. You feel like you've got this pretty much under control, or do you get frustrated on occasion, or maybe about half the time with some aspects? Maybe you wish some things were different, like you could talk on a different topic, or you were in a different space, or you didn't have to do it virtually, or you're frustrated a lot of the time and you're not sure if you're getting through to people or if what you're doing is really what they need, or all those kinds of different things. I see lots of responses coming in. This is great. I feel like we have kind of a real mix, mostly right in the middle there. And I feel that too. I think that sometimes it can be frustrating trying to teach others, especially if you've been asked to do it and you don't necessarily feel super comfortable in the topic, or there's lots of reasons. So I think that's super common. And actually, I'm glad to see we're kind of all in the same boat here. So I'm going to go ahead and clear all those drawings, and we'll go to our next slide. So just a reminder, we're going to put links in the chat box for handouts. We are expecting quite a big group today. So for the most part, we'll probably stay muted, but we'll see how many our numbers are and how much we're able to unmute and talk. That would always be my preference. Just plan for today. So last fall is when I wrote these learning objectives. And I know we can't solve all your frustrations today. And I just chose some things that I thought might be of interest to you. And so kind of here they are. The first one is about getting buy-in. And that also has to do with motivation. A lot of times people will ask me, I'm supposed to teach this person this product or this, type of assistive technology or assessment or implementation, and I just can't get them to want to participate. So that comes up a lot. And then also there's a lot of differences in that I find just kind of interesting to look at in how we teach adults differently than children. We're going to do just a couple slides on that. Then we're going to talk about learning styles, and not only what are the different learning styles out there, but what's your learning style? And that's important because it impacts how we teach. And then we're going to, that's kind of the background, laying the groundwork. But then what do we do about that? What are some strategies? I want us all to be sharing what we know. If you have favorite books or resources or ideas or things that don't try this, it didn't go well at all, then those are the things I'm hoping we can share with each other. And we'll have several different points when I'll be asking you to write things in the chat, so that always for me, I love getting other people's ideas, right? Like I love going to a training and having that rich sharing of resources. And I think sometimes though, I want everybody else's resources, but I don't necessarily want to type my own in there. So I'm going to encourage you, if that's you, to step out of your comfort zone and do share in the chat, because I'd like to put all those resources together. And so if we get enough, then we'll have a nice handout that I'll, kind of create together for you and send to anybody who participated. So we'll be hopefully gathering some things in the chat box as we go. Okay, I want you to just take a minute and reflect on why you're here. It might be one of these objectives that I've written, or it might be something else. And it's important to think about that. I'd love for you to write in the chat box why you came today. What is it that you're hoping to learn? And it's fine if it's one of these, it's fine if it's not. We'll try and get to things that are important to you. And the other thing I want you to do, if you're not comfortable writing in the chat box, I totally get that. But at the very least, I want you to write on a piece of paper next to you for yourself. Why am I here today? What is it I want to learn? And the reason that I'm asking you to write that down for yourself is that the research says that just by writing down what we want to learn from something, just by writing it down, you're 42% more likely to achieve that thing. So we're going to learn a lot about adults and what motivates them for learning. And one of the things is that it is self-paced. It's your own self-interest. What's interesting to you about this topic, and what is it you want to learn? That is where you're going to gravitate towards. That's what you're going to most likely remember, the stories that you link to it. But writing it down is going to make it 42% more likely that you'll achieve what you're looking for. So encourage you to do that. And also, that's just a good strategy for you guys already off the bat in working with others. Ask them why they're meeting with you. What is it they want to take away? And the more you can build and tie into that, the more likely you're both going to have a successful outcome. Okay, let's see. So these objectives that I wrote, some of them I wrote because I was hoping it would get you here. We're going to cover them all. I'm going to give you information on all of them, but most likely you're going to link in on what you think is most important, and that is what you'll retain and take away. But all the answers to all of these are going to be in your handouts. So later you'll be able to go back, watch the video, look at the handouts, look at the resources that we create, and you should have all of this. I am loving these answers of why you're here, you guys. Fantastic. And I'm hoping you're all reading it too. I won't read them all out loud because that will take more than an hour, but this is fantastic. We're definitely going to spend time on, I think, everything I see here. So thank you for contributing that. Really encourage you to keep your own kind of goal in mind. Okay. So motivation and buy-in from adult learners. Adult learners need a personal why. If they're writing down their personal why, they're more likely to accomplish it. But any way you look at it, they need a personal why for being here. And so if you think about your own reasons for learning, it's just a really effective tool, again, for you to use with other people as well. But what are your own reasons for learning, and what are the reasons the person who you're teaching is coming? Hopefully you want to match those as much as possible. So I always like to ask people what they want to learn or change. And then another important question that goes with that is why? Why do they need that information? What is that gonna, how is that gonna help them? Seems simple, seems easy, but a lot of times when people are resistant to learning, it's because they haven't really thought about why they want to be there, or their why isn't matching up with the content you're delivering. So if you can get them to have a why, then again, you're going to have better retention. Sometimes it's about applying it to their job, maybe making an impact on other people. Maybe it's about improving their own professional skills, becoming a better educator, or maybe less intimidated when you're asked to do a training or a coaching, less overwhelmed. Maybe someone told you to come. Maybe it was your boss, or maybe it was a colleague, or maybe you have a child or someone in mind that you want to help. So those are all reasons that adult learners might be motivated to attend a training. Those are useful as we come up with strategies to work with those adult learners. So the next slide is just the research kind of summarizes those things into 6 categories. So social relationships, we often associate with people and make new friends, and that sometimes is a motivator to get us to attend trainings, especially group trainings with maybe colleagues or people we know. Sometimes it's external expectations, like someone told you to come. We talked about that. Sometimes it's to a social welfare. It's to better serve people and your community and your school setting. Or it might be something personal. Sometimes, although I hope this isn't true, people attend training just to get out of their day-to-day work, just to get a break from the day-to-day stuff and do something different, or maybe just provide a little bit of stimulation that's different from their day-to-day jobs. And finally, the 6th category that is the motivation for adults is that they're interested. They're learning for the sake of learning. And I think a lot of us fall into that category. We're lifelong learners. It's fascinating. Doing research, I've talked on this topic before, but doing research again, there's just some of it that's just so interesting, what we remember and why. And yeah, I think there's really good content in this field of adult learning. Okay, so why do you think we need to teach or coach? I'm going to use those 2 words somewhat interchangeably, even though they're different, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we go. But why do you think we need to teach or coach adults differently than kids? Anybody have any ideas for that? Teachers make the worst students. Well, that is funny. Yes, our brains definitely work differently. I love it. And adults have so many competing priorities. I am the worst at that, and might be less flexible. So I don't know if you know this, but when you do a training with adults, 75% of the content that you plan to cover, the adults in your audience probably already have the answers. One person doesn't have all 75% probably, but between them collectively, they already have most of it. So asking a lot of questions during a training is a really good way. Like, look at your answers here. These are fantastic. And this is exactly, when I show you the next slide, this is exactly what the research says. Like, between all of you, you've already, if people are reading the chat along with us as we go, they're already learning from you. And I love that. That's fantastic. So let me show you what the research says. Make it go. There we go. Okay. So I put the source I try and always put the source on each of my slides. So just know that if I don't mention it, it's usually down there, usually as a hyperlink. So let's just talk about some of the differences that you guys already mentioned. So children, they rely on somebody else to tell them what is important, what we're going to learn today. They view their instructor as knowing the answers, kind of that expert model, whereas adults want to decide for themselves what is important to be learned. And they want their instructor not to be such an expert, but more to be a resource. They want to guide their learning, and they want their instructor to help them get there. So if you kind of keep that in mind, I'm thinking as you're thinking about these differences, it should help you start to generate some strategies, which of course we'll talk about later. But I'd love for you to start thinking about, okay, what could I do differently if I know that? If I know that adults want to decide for themselves what's important, next time I go to teach an adult, what would I do differently? How would I change it? Just start thinking about that. So children accept whatever's being presented at face value. Whatever the teacher says, that's what they're going to absorb. Adults have to validate the information based on their own experiences, their own beliefs, their own history. They have to integrate with their background knowledge. And in some cases, they maybe know more than the instructor about this. So it's important for the instructor to modify and find out, well, what have you tried? Where is your background knowledge, so that you're not repeating information that they already have. That's really hard to do in a setting like this, but clearly from your chat responses, a lot of you have a lot of knowledge about the differences. So amazing. That's fantastic. Children expect what they're learning to be useful for the long term. Adults expect it to be immediately useful. They want the just-in-time training, like, I can't do this, just help me do this. And so sometimes it's about helping them get from that moment they're at right now to that next level, helping them see how this is immediately useful, but it's also going to be useful in the future. And here's why. Kids have little or no experience to draw in, and a couple of people have said that. Whereas adults, lots of experience. Sometimes that means adults have more fixed viewpoints. That's okay. That's okay. Children have a little ability to serve as a knowledge resource for their teacher or classmates, although they do often try. And some of them definitely do. This is a generalization, but as compared to adults, significant ability to be knowledge resources, like all the things you all just listed in the chat. Oh my gosh, like great differences between adults and kids. So we know we need to teach adults differently than children. And I think that those are great resources. Another important consideration in the difference between children and adults is research by Malcolm Knowles. And Malcolm Knowles is one of those people you should definitely, his name's on the bottom of the screen there, definitely look up if you're interested in reading more about adult learning. He's a prolific writer. He has several books and resources. There's lots of stuff on the web. He is just an American educator, very well known for the concept of andragogy, but also spent a lot of time on adult learning styles and how do we get buy-in from adults. And so he talked about not only those things that are on that previous slide, but also self-concept. Self-concept moves from being like a dependent personality toward one of being self-directed. So that's true with our learning as well as adults. We want to take ownership for our learning journey. We want to direct where it's going to go, and we want the freedom to kind of help make those twists and turns. If as a learner we're given that, then we can really take off and explore and kind of figure out the answers to the questions that we had when we came to that training in the first place. Again, we already talked about learner experience. That certainly is the richness of our past jobs or education or life events. We want to bring that in whenever possible. And that's where stories can come in, like either the instructor telling stories or participants telling stories, so that they can help integrate their learning into their own experiences. A readiness to learn and an orientation to learning. Both of those kind of go hand in hand. Adult learners want to solve problems. They come usually with a problem they want to solve. So anything that contributes to that. And then finally, adults just have that motivation to learn often, not always. I know a couple of you mentioned that situation where you might have a general education teacher who you're having a hard time helping them understand what they need to know. If you go back to their learner experiences, their readiness to learn, their motivation, those are good strategies to try and get them bought in. And also just figuring out where are they struggling and how can you help them in that problem solving that then gets maybe you to where the things that you know that they need to learn too. So just kind of think about applying those assumptions before you might go into a training situation. Think about what you might be doing differently. Maybe write a note for yourself. Oh, I might try this. I might do this a little differently. Okay, that was kind of background information. Now a little bit about adult learning styles. Again, Malcolm Knowles is a great resource for this, but there's so much information out there on adult learning styles. And the three big main adult learning styles that people talk about are auditory, visual, and tactile kinesthetic. I will say, though, that depending upon the author, there are as many as some people say, oh, there's 10 learning styles, there's 12 learning styles. So depending upon where you go, you're going to find lots of different answers for that. But a lot of them do come back to these three. So we're going to focus on those today. It simplifies it. And I think a lot of us have heard this before. I'm curious if very many of you know your own adult learning style. So the next slide, we're going to ask about that. If you think you're auditory, visual, kinesthetic, but if those terms are somewhat new to you, I doubt they are. Just briefly, I'm going to talk about how auditory learners learn and different things if you're an auditory learner that you could do to help you in your own learning. So of course, it makes sense. Auditory learners learn by listening, but also by speaking and hearing. They like lectures. They like brainstorming sessions and discussions, things that have an auditory base to them. They often interpret an underlying meaning of speech by the pitch or the tone, or they're very aware of those speech nuances. And written information doesn't have a lot of meaning to them until they hear it. So they might like books on tape or reading a book out loud. Those are good strategies. If you're teaching someone who's primarily an auditory learner, and I should say, we are all three of these to different degrees, right? And I'm going to show you my breakout and a way you can get a formal answer to what you are with a website link in a slide or two. But we are all a little bit of each of these. Sometimes we're more dominant in one over another. Sometimes we're more of an even mix. So if you feel like you might be more than one, or you might be all three, we all are. It's just we often, all of us, have a preferred method of learning. So just be thinking about what your preferred method might be. So that was auditory. Let's talk about kinesthetic. Oh, sorry, wait, before I go to that, if you're teaching someone who's an auditory learner, then videos, podcasts, allowing them to tape, to video or audio tape what you're teaching or record it will help them a lot. Yeah, they're the person who likes to sit close to the instructor so that they can hear well and there aren't a lot of distractions. And they will be distracted by other sounds. So kind of keep that in mind if you have someone who's a really strong auditory. The kinesthetic likes hands-on learning. They like to perform and try things, really do it to learn it. That's great for teaching AT if you have somebody who is a kinesthetic learner. They can have a hard time engaging in lectures or where they're taking in information only through an auditory or visual mode. And so this type of person likes to have a pen in their hand and be taking a lot of notes. They like to trace words as you're saying them. They have to write out, if they are required to memorize facts, they have to write them out, and in order to really take that information to that tactile place. Tactile learners often have like a supply of scratch paper next to them. So they're kind of writing as they're learning. That's how it's helping them learn. Visual learners like images, demonstrations, and videos. Those are helpful for them. And so anything in a visual format, they like also to put themselves in that low visual distraction situation. So they're going to sit up close, watch your facial cues, your body language. They're going to do better if they're visually in front of the speaker. Like this is a person who a very strong visual learner will often sit in the front of the classroom without a lot of visual distractions. And they take detailed notes as well. It helps them absorb it because not so much the process of writing it, but rereading it back. So visual learners love charts and videos and maps and also like flashcards, different ways. So we all learn when all three learning styles are employed. So even though we have a preference for one over another, we all learn better if we use all three. So that's what these little white percentages are. If we teach only in a visual mode, if we're only giving people the visual mode, they're going to absorb 10% of what they see. no matter their learning style. If we combine that, if we give them visual and auditory, they're going to absorb 30 to 40%. And if we combine all three, they see, hear, and do, they're going to absorb 90%. That's how learning styles impact us. So really interesting, I think, as you're creating training content, making sure that you have these different methods of training people will help engage them, it'll help engage everyone, help improve retention as well. And research on adult attention spans, it's so interesting. Most adults have about a 15 to 20 minute attention span, particularly if you're teaching in their primary learning style. But because we also want to mix it up to keep interest, the research says that if you're changing learning styles at least every 7 minutes, so that you will keep your audience attending better. So let's talk about what your preferred learning style is. Again, using your annotate button. What do you think you are? You may not know, but just guess based on what you heard there. It's like, oh yeah, I have to write my notes out, or I like to see the slides, or I need to do it. And you can write in the chat if you'd rather not use the annotate, that's fine. Nice, we got nobody auditory yet, just visual and kinesthetic. Oh, there they are. Awesome, another visual, predominantly visual. And I think if you think of the American school system, a lot of the content that we receive comes in through that visual modality with some auditory too, and of course, yeah. Wonderful. Quite a mix. We're pretty evenly split, it looks like so far. So that's great. Okay, I'm going to clear the screen. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we'll clear all drawings. So now I want to show you, this is a link, this learningstylequiz.com. Don't do it now. I know some of you might be tempted to go do it now. It's pretty quick. And what I love about this particular, first of all, I found it quite accurate. It not only gives you your learning style, but it also will tell you, it does like a quick Myers-Briggs personality inventory. So, because that's a factor too. Are you introverted or extroverted? Those all impact you, how you like to learn. So this is a great little website to link to if you are not sure what you are, or you just kind of are curious, or you want to confirm that you are what you think you are. So here's my results. It comes back in this circle, as well as other information. They give you a whole report. If you want to give your email to them, which I really don't necessarily recommend you do that, but if you want to give your email to them, they'll email you your results. Otherwise, you can just do a screenshot or a quick print and have it. If you do give them your email, just know that they're going to send you other training resources. So if you want that, great, give them your email, but I think they also might share your email with learning companies. So this was mine. I'm predominantly visual, 45% roughly, about 30% kinesthetic, and about 25% auditory. So as I said, most of us are a combo, but we have one area that's a little stronger, and that's going to be where you prefer to learn. So one other thing that's so important is that whatever your preferred learning style, we're all three, but whatever your preferred learning style is, that is the way you will intuitively teach others. And I remember the first time I heard this, I'm like, really? Is that true? But the more I paid attention to that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it is so true. And it's hard because that's just intuitively where you go. So just to give you an example, imagine that I'm going to teach you how to drive, and you've never driven before, you have no idea. So I will teach you in the way I like to learn. And that might be a huge challenge in your learning. So for example, because I'm predominantly a visual learner, I want to read about driving first. I want to kind of get the big picture. And I want to do these other things because I am all three, but predominantly I need some visual information first. I am, even though this says that I'm 25% auditory, I would say I'm less than that in my mind. Like if you're just telling me how to do it, I will not absorb it nearly as quickly as if I'm reading it. That I'll get in just a lot faster. So a friend of mine described learning to drive from her dad, who he thought he was kinesthetic. He thought you learn by doing. So the way he did it, he drove her to get her learner's permit. And then they got in the car to go home. And he said, okay, we're going to let you drive home. She'd never, ever read anything about driving, heard anything about driving. He handed her the keys and had her drive home. It's terrifying. She's still terrified just thinking back on it. So keep in mind that the way our preferred learning style is how we tend intuitively to teach. That is not effective for a lot of people. We want to have all three represented. And then another thing I think that's fascinating is, what do we remember? So this is all about memory of what we've learned. And so if it's just a lecture, we're going to get about 5%. From reading it, we're going to get about 10%. Combining audio and visual, 20%. Again, this is memory. Watching a demonstration, about 30. Group discussion, about 50. And practicing, about 75. But when we teach someone else, that is when we really ingrain it. So this is just with memory. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to show you another one that might seem to conflict, but it's looking at more transfer of skills. And most of our attention span, as I mentioned, is 15 to 20 minutes, which this is why TED Talks are often 18 minutes. Like, that's how long most people are going to attend. So these two links at the bottom are, I feel like, really useful. Fascinating information about attention span and memory. If you're interested in learning more about that, I'd encourage you to follow those. So what do you do if you can't get all of this in, or you're in a virtual environment and you can't really get a chance to practice, or there's not a great opportunity for group discussion? What do you do? How do you get around that? And so the research says that chunking information is a good strategy, that using a lot of different, again, those different auditory, visual, kinesthetic, creating little soft breaks. So if we can attend for 15 minutes, but we get a break in between. So this is the learning objective, how to get buy-in and motivate people. Okay, now we're going to summarize that. We're going to go to the next one, but there's a break in between. There's a transfer. It shifts attention. It helps people restart that 15-minute clock and rejoin you. So I find this stuff just so fascinating. So those soft breaks can make such a difference. Okay, so that was memory. Now we're going to look at transferring a new skill. So and this research was done I think it was done with teachers. So let me just, hopefully this works. Yeah, it was done with teachers. So what % of teachers do you think will transfer a new skill into their practice just based on theory, just learning about theory? Any guesses? You can type in the chat. 10%, good guesses, 5%. You're right on track. 8%, 10%. Yep, it's pretty low, unfortunately. Oops, that's mine. Hang on. Okay, hopefully. Oh no, is my slide not going to work here? There it is. Okay, 5% of teachers will transfer a new skill in their practice as a result of theory. What if we add a demonstration? Again, this is transferring the skill, not just remembering it, but really being able to apply it. What percentage do you think? 30, nice. 10%, not very much. Like theory and a demonstration, they're only going to remember or transfer and apply. No wonder we spend all this time training and it's not working. It's because theory and demonstration they're only walking away with a 10% transfer. So what if we add practice? What if we give them a chance to practice? 20%, still so low. This is research with teachers, with showing them a strategy to try in the classroom and then giving them first theory, then demonstration, then practice. They're only able to transfer 20%. If we add feedback, if we give them feedback during that practice session, we're only up to 25%. It's not until we get down here into adding coaching, And that's that flexible guidance that really focuses on their strengths, what they want to learn, all those things we know about buy-in and motivation. That is when we start to see it really starting to make a difference. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on coaching today, but just a couple of things, the difference between coaching and teaching, and you can go read on this on your own in your self-paced learning. Coaching is more about that one-on-one relationship where the coach is helping the individual to move to a desired goal, to their desired goal. Like, what is it they want to, in this area that you're trying to move them, what is their part that they want to move, helping them get there, but focusing on that relationship and the trust, building trust within that relationship. And really, it needs to be a safe environment for someone to be willing to demonstrate and practice and get feedback. You need to develop a relationship, and that happens through coaching. So there's tons of information out there on coaching, and we're not going to, unfortunately, have time to go into that today, but just one resource that I put down here in the link, but there's so much out there. Okay, so now you have some background information, and really, I think you're starting to think about strategies, but let's talk about this. Let's go through some of the strategies that are going to make a difference so that, let me go back. Okay, there we go. So in a minute, we're gonna go into a breakout room, and we're gonna share with each other some strategies that we've tried, or strategies that we think we'd like to try, or maybe some frustrations. We'll have lots of opportunities to just chat with each other. But one of the effective strategies that we know is that for adults, we need to involve them in the goal, in figuring out their why. And so if adults are in charge of their learning, then that's a shift that happens that just will mean that you're more likely to get there. So a good instructor is going to help get rid of this feeling of dependency, that you have to come to me for information. You know what your goal is. I'm here as a resource. I can fill in pieces, but there's lots of information out there, and I want to help you and support you in that process of getting there. So that thinking back on that buy-in and internal motivation for learning, I think asking participants to write down what they want to walk away with is just a really good strategy for this one. But be thinking about how would you get the learner if they're resistant? What about that gen ed teacher who really doesn't want to participate? When we go into the breakout, I want us to be talking about what's worked for us. What have we tried? And then certainly building on previous experiences is a strategy. I find sometimes just starting to tell stories about what's working or not working can help people connect. And it also helps them integrate this new learning into their old learning. And that just-in-time resources helps build on their background knowledge so that learning can be more effective. Certainly making it relevant and interesting. That's a little bit like getting their buy-in, but as you're teaching things, tying it back to their goal, to their motivation is going to help them learn more. And then I think those reluctant learners, sometimes it's about not having a shared vision of what they want to learn. Sometimes it's often about safety and trust. And so building a relationship, making sure you have confidentiality and non-judgment and non-critical. And really, adult learners want to be respected. They want you to say, look, I know you don't want to learn this. Like, I get that. That makes total sense to me. Let's talk about, how I can help you with what you need to know. So also recognizing their strengths and building their self-confidence and self-esteem in whatever topic you're teaching goes a long way for reluctant learners. The big one, I feel like, is modifying your instruction and even your evaluation. So that might mean changing your pace, thinking about learning styles, breaking it down into chunks, like 15-minute chunks. Research says that after 20 minutes, no matter how motivated we are, our focus is depleted, and we are probably not going to retain everything that's being shared. So we are already, pretty far into this training, and I probably lost your attention some time ago, hopefully not. Hopefully by using the chat box and those other things where we can keep people's attention. Certainly problem-centered, we talked about that, addressing the problem that they might have, and then really coaching instead of teaching is an important thing too. So next we're going to just spend about 7 minutes, 7-8 minutes. We're going to break out into groups of 5 or 6 people. And I really want you to help each other. Like you guys, I saw already in the chat box, you have a lot of these strategies, but you could talk about the strategies that you want to try. You could talk about challenges that you need other people to help you with. I would like someone to take notes, and we're not going to share those back as a group. I would love the note taker to email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and then I'll take all of our notes and again, send them with those other resources that we have. So if you have strategies that you like or questions that you don't have answered yet, that we can find resources for you, that's our hope. Welcome back, everyone. I'm asking you to write your group number if you remember. If you don't, just put your name or the name of your device, because that's how they came to me, and your email. And then if you can, send me, there's my email, your notes in whatever format works best for you. I'm going to compile it and try and share it back out with all of the participants. We should have all your emails, so that in theory should work great. So thanks everyone for doing that. Hopefully that was a useful experience. I think that we all come with such rich background knowledge, but we also have very shared fundamental challenges with training others. Like they're very similar from person to person. So why not learn from each other and share our resources? So I'm kind of starting to wind down here. Let me just go to this next slide. And I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about just kind of quickly, just to wrap up what we said we were going to learn, and a couple of things that I tried to do as we were going through this. So we wanted to talk about buy-in from reluctant learners. In my mind, this was the second big thing I wanted to cover. My first big thing was strategies. So when you're training, it's good to have the one big thing. Like if people can only walk away with one piece of learning, what is it? And in my mind, it's having strategies, like knowing where to start when you get back in the office tomorrow or Monday or whenever you're back in that setting, and trying to share resources. So getting buy-in. And one thing that we know is writing down our goals. It helps us know where we're going and helps us get there as adults. So that's why I asked you to do that. And then we explored why we need to teach adults versus differently than kids. I think that was also just a nice way to get, I find that fascinating, frankly. And a lot of you already have background knowledge on that, so you could add that to your learning. Then adult learning styles. It helps us personalize when we know what our learning style is, how that might influence our teaching style. And then also to keep that in mind as we're working with others. Like it's really easy to teach only in your style. And if you're teaching someone who's a completely different style, you're going to lose them. So I think that's pretty important to kind of keep in mind. Then we talked a lot about effective strategies. I just gave you a bullet list of some that are in the research, but hopefully as you were sharing with each other, there's a lot more. As I said, I'm going to compile all those and send them back out to you. And also if questions came up, or if you have questions, email me. I'm happy. My email's in the chat box. I'm happy to share. I did a lot of reading to prepare for this, so I'm happy to share some resources if you'd like them. And then I think connecting with our own experiences is best done in those breakout sessions, when we can say, this is what I'm frustrated with. This is what I tried. This is what worked. This is what didn't. And so that's why we spent some time doing it that way. Okay, now hopefully glancing back at your little note that you wrote to yourself when we started, you are at least one step closer in answering what it was you wanted to learn today. Maybe you don't know the answer, but at least you have a little more background knowledge, a little bit more things that you can tie into your own learning, and a little motivation maybe to go look into it yourself. So remember, as adult learners, we guide our own learning. We're in charge of this, and sometimes we have to go out and find information if it wasn't what we were expecting. Okay, so that was the formal content I had for today, and we're right on time here. I just want to show you also in your notes, there's information. We do have a full clinic. I mentioned that in the beginning, but there's a little information on that. And then this is just a final summary of our team. Because we do have this team of occupational, physical, speech language therapists, engineers, and professors, faculty members, we're here for you. We want to be able to provide technical assistance and support. So please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us with your questions. If our SWAC team can't answer it, then we go back to our larger team, and they typically can. So I want to really thank you all for joining us today. I know it's a ton of information in only an hour, but hopefully you got started and got some information that will be helpful. And you can go and have a dinner conversation with your family about how much you learn when you attend a training and how you need to change that. So thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time.